Greeting to our listeners. Welcome to our channel. Today we will hear about the predicament of a young woman who is tempted to have a forbidden affair with her father-in-law. Join us as our main character shares her story. Hello. Let me start by saying that I don't know how I ended up in this situation. I'm 29 years old and I've made many mistakes in life. But this time, I think I'm pushing the limits. I got married very early, at the age of 21. My family was living in the village, and believe me, village life was not for me at all. Working in the fields, looking after the cattle is definitely not a job for me, but I couldn't explain this to my family. I dreamt about city life, but my parents wouldn't move to a city. My family was not doing well financially as my parents made ends meet. On top of that, they wanted to marry me off. I insisted that I didn't want a marriage. Being the only child in the family, my parents didn't want to put pressure on me and stopped their demands that I get married. Soon I found a job in a nearby city. It was a sales job and was exactly what I wanted. I loved my job, it was going very well, but I was getting tired commuting back and forced to work. After a while, I moved to the city. I was enjoying my job. I had made friends and had a good social life. Gradually, my boss's son started showing interest in me. It's true that many men were showing interest in me as I was an attractive girl and wore revealing dresses, to be honest. But I had standards. I didn't want people to think I was an easy woman. After a while, my boss's son proposed to me. He was 3 years older than me. He was a nice guy. I thought I was lucky to marry a good-looking, rich and nice guy who was in love with me and treated me well. What else can a girl want? We got married and stayed married for 5 years. Luckily, I made a rule for myself that I would not have children for the first 2 years. After 2 years, I was having thoughts about getting a divorce. However, I kept convincing myself that I must give my husband a chance. 5 years later, I could no longer stand him and finally divorced my husband. I kept asking myself why I wanted a divorce. I had doubts. The thing is, my husband is like a child who wouldn't grow up. He was a spoiled boy who wouldn't change. In the end, he also agreed to divorce. I refused to demand any compensation from him during the divorce. But to my surprise, my husband insisted that I should take the house. His offer shocked me as I wasn't expecting such maturity from him. After the divorce, I changed my job. I already had a house and didn't have to worry about paying rent. I was somehow financially free. Thanks to this freedom, I started hanging out and enjoying my life again. I was seeing new men. But I didn't want anything casual. I wanted to be in a long-term relationship with a man who would be in my life long-term. I was looking for masculine characteristics in men. This is what I was looking for in men. I was quick to eliminate any immature or unmanly men from my life in order not to waste any more time. Finally, I met someone who met my standards character-wise. His name was Sabri. A very charismatic guy who runs his own bar. He was 30 years old. After dating for 3 months, we decided to live together. Sabri was a well-mannered, intelligent and mature person. He was masculine too. I started thinking that I would marry him. He hadn't been married before. What I liked about him was that he was not a womanizer. He wanted to settle down and live a quiet life. He would often come home late at night because it would take until 3 o'clock for him to close the bar. I usually went to his bar after work and would hang out there with my boyfriend until 11. Then I would return home. One evening, when I went to the bar, I saw Sabri talking to a middle-aged man. It was obvious from a distance that the conversation was not very pleasant. The man was very charismatic, in his 50s. He was wearing a leather jacket, had tattoos on his neck and hands, and long white hair tied at the back. The man looked very attractive. The motorbike outside was probably his. Seeing me, Sabri signaled, "Come, my dear. I want to introduce you to someone," he told me, pointing to the man in front of him. Turns out, the man was his father. Then Sabri started explaining, "I want you to hear it from me first. My father has just been released from prison where he served for financial fraud." I was taken aback. Come on, it was not a financial fraud. Just some disagreement over trade. "Don't pay attention to the stupid judge's ruling," Sabri's father said jokingly. His name was David. Then Sabri asked me whether his father could stay with us for a few days as he had nowhere to go. "Darling, of course, he can. He is your father. He can stay as long as he wants. As to his past, everyone can make a mistake. I can see from your father's eyes that he is sorry," I said. "Son, you have found the right woman this time. Marry this girl immediately," David told his son. We prepared one of the rooms in the apartment for David. I couldn't see much of my father-in-law in the first week. He would sleep when I left for work in the morning and would be outside when I would return in the evening. Once I came home at noon as I wasn't feeling well. I wanted to go home and rest. When I opened the door, I heard screams. I had only heard so many screams in movies. The sound was coming from my father-in-law's room. He was with a woman in the room. 15 minutes later, my father-in-law came out to the living room with a towel around his waist. He was stunned when he saw me. "Aren't you at work?" he asked. At that point, a woman came out of his room. Turns out, it was the waitress at Sabri's bar. She left without saying a word. My father-in-law approached me and said, "I'm so sorry. I really thought you were going to be at work." "It's not a problem, how would you know?" "But that girl works at our bar. Your son won't like that you spent the night with her," I responded. "I know. We chatted for a while at the bar last night and ended up spending the night together." "You know that I hadn't been with a woman for many years," David explained. The girl in question was only 25 years old. I couldn't get over how he made the 25-year-old girl scream so much. How could the man be so vigorous and charismatic, even though he was 52 years old? Once after returning home, David was taking a bath in the bathroom. He was singing and the bathroom door was slightly open. I saw his naked body and our eyes met. Since that day, his behavior towards me has changed. The way he talks to me has also changed. Sometimes he deliberately makes physical contact with me while passing by me in the corridor or in the kitchen. I find myself attracted to him, although I know that it's not the right thing to do. I don't know how to behave.